every species has a species appropriate diet. Any animal based food is better than no animal based food. Your plate is not supposed to be 55% carbohydrate. So I say eat as close to nature as possible. Avoid things that you have not heard of in the last 150 years. Soy is one of them. Ultimately, vegetables are carbohydrates with fiber. There is nothing the animal based kingdom will not give you, not a single thing that you get only from vegetables and fruits.
Animal-based nutrition consultant with a protein-forward approach and one of the loudest voice in India, helping us separate plant meals from plant-based meals. Our guest today on the Settle or Be Better podcast is Sangeetha Aiyer, who's going to be talking to us about animal-based nutrition and a lot more. Welcome, Sangeetha ma'am, and over to you. Why don't you begin by telling us a little bit about your personal health and wellness story?
Thank you so much, Sakshi. Thank you for having me. Wonderful Saturday morning today, and can't think of a better way to begin this. I've spoken about myself a couple of times in the past, so I'll keep it short and crisp. Like any other person, especially women, I have struggled with being, whether you want to call it pleasantly plump, progressing to fat, to obese over a period of time in my life, and very young in my life. Um, what's what started as vanity weight loss soon for me became a health concern, because by the time I had my baby and I was almost 30 years old, I was about 32 kgs obese, and also started developing certain health related symptoms like pre-diabetes, and I already was diagnosed with PCOS. um, so over a period of time, like tell everybody on Twitter and on various podcasts, there is not a single diet approach I haven't tried. And over the last 20-25 years, we've been through many dieting approaches. I mean, starting with the God forbid GM diet to fruit diet to calorie counting to cardio. I have done it all, only to realize that uh, that something as simple as health and weight maintenance, which comes so naturally to almost every other species, okay, why is it so difficult for us? And then I was lucky through my research to stumble upon a low carb way of eating. Now, low carb has various nuances and various strands below it as to how you can do low carb. But largely, I practice a low carb way of eating, wherein, and I, uh, uh, included intermittent fasting in that protocol. And the third big thing that I did was get most of my nutrition from animal based foods. And for me, after that, what I was struggling with over a 10-15 year journey of maintaining health, of maintaining weight, and then there are a lot of mental aspects of this, right? Focus, energy, productivity, patience, especially when you are in your early 30s. You're trying to also build a career. In my case, I was also a very young mom, having a family. I found that the mental benefits of all of this also was something that was not spoken about, but that became a game changer. So in a nutshell, by the time I was 34, 35, I think I found the secret sauce recipe to kind of maintain a good health, maintain my blood work in the right parameters, only go from strength to strength as far as my career, as far as my physical strength goes, mental energy goes, and I've been there so far. It's been about 8-9 years now.
Lovely. Thank you for sharing that with us. And like today, with so many confusing, opposing opinions and everything backed by research, whenever you look for something, you will find research on that particular thing. So
Yeah.
there's so many opposing opinions about nutrition, particularly, like don't eat meat unless it's grass fed, don't eat seafood because it has higher, mercury concentration, don't eat fruits, it can be inflammatory, and just so many of these other things. So how does one weigh these options, and how are you able to come to this animal based nutrition approach, because you grew up in a vegetarian family, right? So just tell
Yes.
us a little bit about that.
Yes. See, firstly, I want to address the noise that is there around nutrition, because that is true. Okay. And it takes an extreme amount of investment in the topic and in yourself, which I don't think, not everybody can be me and you, right? Who's delving into the latest research and who's trying, because listen, if you type is soy healthy, you will get 10,000 articles on why it's healthy. If you type is soy unhealthy, you will get 10,000. And the same goes for carbohydrates, the same goes for protein, the same goes for meat, the same goes for fat. Okay. Now, either you are somebody like me, who has gone through this entire topic for years and years together, and not just theoretically or through randomized controlled tests or nothing like that, but in real life application. Okay. So I have applied everything that a said approach or a said new paper has said, and I kind of know, I've come to realize what works for me. Now, there are different things that work for different people, and that is where nutrition is sometimes so nuanced. But having said that, Sakshi, that every species has a species appropriate diet, because your DNA at a cellular level, you are supposed to consume food in a certain manner. Now, with human beings, somewhere that wisdom has, or that knowledge has kind of gone away for many reasons. People take food personally, people take nutrition personally, there is emotion involved around your way of eating, right? Vegetarians, for whatever reason, when they call themselves pure vegetarian, it's there is some sort of a virtue signaling around it. What is a pure vegetarian? And only coming specifically to India, only in India we have this term called non-vegetarian. Nowhere in the world you have that term. You're a meat eater, or you're a vegetarian, or you're an ovo lacto vegetarian, or you're a lacto vegetarian. There are certain ways. There is nothing called as no there, right? So, combined with a whole lot of, like I said, religion, politics, emotion, people have forgotten that the body actually doesn't care for any of this, right? The body is a living organism, and it needs its nutrients in a certain manner, and it doesn't recognize your label of way of eating. It recognizes the molecular composition of what you're eating. Correct. So this is where I realized that when I started eating in a certain way, after being 28 years a vegetarian, and when I started slowly progressing to meat based nutrition or animal based nutrition, I started realizing that my body is responding in a certain manner. Okay. Now, you cannot deny that. No matter what your personal belief system is, you cannot deny that. Okay. Now, I have been a person who's been able to challenge family pressure, peer pressure, environmental pressure, social pressure, all of that, and say, hey, you know what, this works for me and I'm going to do this. Now, not everybody will be able to do that. I am completely cognizant of that too. Home plays a very important role, religion plays a very important role. All I am trying to do is to say that if you cannot be as animal based like me, okay, that's all right. But at least be aware what your way of eating is doing to you, and how you can make certain adjustments so that tomorrow, as years go by, you're not getting obese, you're not falling into this whole trap of metabolic syndrome, you're not dependent on meds, and your health is not deteriorating, and there is no frailty in your aging. That's all I am trying to do. There is a lot of misconception also that I don't work with vegetarians or I diss vegetarians. Maybe my tonality comes across like that on Twitter, but I have to say, I work with a lot of vegetarians, and every time I work with them, they're very pleasantly surprised to know how supportive and what kind of options I give them. Okay. So I am not going to kid glove and say rice and dal is complete nutrition. That's rubbish. Okay. uh, though everybody loves to hear what they want to hear, I will tell you what you need to hear. If you're going to be vegetarian, if you're going to exclude animal based foods out of your choice, know the consequences of those, and within those consequences, see how you are better prepared. Right. So, coming back to your question, yes, mine is a very long journey of 15, 18 years, and I continuously do that journey today. Most of my weekends are spent in research, the latest what people are saying. But the more important thing is, I don't throw studies out there and say a study did this, because a study is done in a very controlled environment for a very short period of time. And if anybody knows nutrition, you will know that nutrition studies are the most poorly done studies. People are not invested in those studies. It calls for a lot of funding. So I believe in application, and when I apply on myself is when I kind of know what works. And of course, then you use studies to kind of recalibrate and do things like that.
Understood. And that was really well said, because, when you do look for certain benefits or certain disadvantages of anything, you will find a reasons to back it up. And that's where,
Yeah,
all this confusion begins. And,
correct.
coming to carnivore diet, this might be a silly question, but what is the difference between a non-vegetarian diet and a carnivore diet? I mean, is the carb consumption that is very different? Because in India there are many people who eat non-veg, but how is
Yeah.
that different? What shift would they be making if they switch to a carnivore diet?
Okay, so animal-based diets are those wherein a large proportion of your calories come from animals, which is what I do. Okay, so 80% of caloric intake, of my caloric intake on an average in a day or in a week, will come from anything that is animal-based, and those will be meat, including red meat, poultry, seafood, dairy, eggs. Okay, so 80% of my calorie, 20% I still do consume a vegetable here and there. I still will consume maybe one odd fruit, maybe a guava or an orange or some berries. Or I will consume, depending upon what my workout schedule is like and what's available, maybe a potato here and there. Okay, so an animal based nutrition lifestyle is a little more flexible, but it is still very, very suitable for most people. Okay, a carnivore diet takes it to the other extreme. Right now, the carnivore diet is not a diet to say, I mean, people call it an ancestral diet and people call it many things. A carnivore diet is actually a health based protocol that suits certain people in with certain conditions. Now, are only those people supposed to be on a carnivore diet? No. If you can do a carnivore diet, please do a carnivore diet. Usually, a carnivore diet will eliminate any kind of plant, any kind. They use even herbs and spices very, very sparingly. Okay, it's not the Indian masala way of cooking with pyaz tomato. That's not it. It's usually salt, pepper. Okay, it uses a lot of animal based fat and protein will come together in nature. Like it's a lot of fatty cut of meat, a fatty protein, things like that. It eliminates all fruit. Okay, and definitely no carbohydrate. So that is a little more stringent way of eating. And traditionally, or when I say traditionally, even in the last 10, 12 years, I think the carnivore diet came about in 2008 and literally came to be known now in India about a year, 2 years ago, with people like me and other people doing the
True.
diet. So that diet, historically or traditionally, like I said, was started for certain health conditions to which the medical fraternity had no answers. Irritable bowel syndrome is one of them. All autoimmune is one of them. Crohn's disease is one of them. Ulcerative colitis is one of them. Rheumatoid arthritis is one of them. Now, all these, if you ask me, is there proven research? No, because nobody wants to do any research on a carnivore diet, right? But there are thousands of anecdotes if you go about on Twitter or if you go about on YouTube, where people will swear by the carnivore diet um, for all these conditions. And I think this became really big news a few years ago when Jordan Peterson and his daughter Michaela Peterson, both with chronic conditions of depression, arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, followed the beef. It was basically beef, salt, and water, a complete elimination diet, and they kind of regained their health. And the world was going crazy looking at their blood markers, and everything seemed okay. Right, so carnivore diet is the extreme form of animal based nutrition where you probably don't even do dairy sometimes. Okay, it is meat and a very specific small set of plant based herbs, largely animal fat, butter, ghee, tallow. So that's what it is. And yes, for most it will be very restrictive. Even I don't do the carnivore diet regularly, but I use it as a cleansing tool. Okay, like if I've done a trip somewhere and I feel I have overindulged on something, I call it the ultimate elimination protocol to reset my digestion, my health, because it is the cleanest, if you ask me, way of eating, contrary to what people may think.
Exactly. That's funny that you say that, because every now and then when we do come from travels, or we've eaten heavy during festival season, whatever, even meat,
Exactly.
our idea of cleansing is, okay, let's go on a juice cleanse, or let's go have more fiber and
Yeah,
fruits and naturally available
yeah,
plants and whatever
yeah,
foods we have. But
yeah,
that's really amazing that you pointed that out,
yeah.
because that's very
So
rare that people see eating this way as a clean way of eating.
correct. So there are two things that I use as a cleanse. One, definitely fasting. Okay, that cleanse is been around with human beings since evolution. Okay, so and I'm not talking about how we Indians fast during the Navratris. That's not a
With
fast. That's a
sabudana.
feast. Okay, so fast is a water fast. So fasting is one protocol, and carnivore is the other protocol, because in both these protocols you're actually giving definitely in fasting you're giving your digestion a rest. With carnivore, what happens is just by sheerly eliminating everything, and usually when you eat carnivore you're unable to eat more because the satiety is very very high. So usually when I do a reset using the carnivore way of eating, maybe for 10 days or 15 days, I will not be able to eat more than a meal and a half in a day, and an active day, and I'll be able to train and everything. So this is how I use it. A lot of people swear by it on a regular basis. The second thing that becomes very simple with carnivore nutrition is your planning for food is easy. People don't look at it this way. All you have to do is you need to have meat, salt, pepper, and some cooking fat, healthy fat. That's about it.
True, no decision fatigue, because I'll tell
No,
you what,
yeah,
like just like you said, you've also tried out so many of these other ways of nutrition and eating. Just like that, like 2 years back, I was really fascinated with the whole vegan concept, and I tried it for 10 days. It was just a big no. Like, even going out and eating, or every day, every meal, I have to make a decision. Okay, can I do this? Can I eat this? And while a lot of Indians would feel that having being a vegan in India is easy because of what we the traditional Indian meals, but then
yeah,
again, it's a lot more of carbs and grain and way less protein, and that's how the meal is, and that's why we feel it's accessible or easy. And compared to what will happen here, is it's going to be a lot less decision fatigue, because it really helps. And just now, like, I've been a vegetarian for the last 2 years. I don't know, for some reason, with all of these being exposed to all of these plants and nutrition, and my family is a non-vegetarian, and now I have started consuming really after seeing your videos, to be honest. Because
hmm,
at first, whenever I would see anyone talk about carnivore nutrition or animal based, it would feel really overwhelming to think about red meat or
yeah,
organ meat, and I don't want to consume that. That's what I
yeah.
always felt like. But going through your
See,
blogs and what
just a
you
small interjection here. While organ meat is healthy, it is absolutely not necessary on a carnivore diet. Okay, so traditionally, a lot of traditional, like the Hazda tribes and the Maasai tribes, and even a lot of Indian traditionally, if you see, there has been organ meat, but organ meat is the reason why it is so unpalatable is because it needs to be consumed infrequently. Otherwise, it would be palatable, right?
Right.
So a lot of people get overwhelmed saying that, oh, should I be eating beef liver and chicken liver and mutton liver, and should I be doing brain and paya? No, not really. You can get a lot of nutrition just from muscle meat. Sorry, you were saying.
that was great insight, because I even when I was eating non-veg, that is something that completely despised
Correct.
eating. I can
Right.
hear
Right.
you talk about it forever, because it is really opening up knots in my mind when I'm thinking about it from this perspective.
Right.
And so personally, and even a lot of my friends, they find uh consuming eggs and some seafood, like some fish and prawn, a lot more cleaner. I might be wrong over here, or accessible, from in terms of what source it's coming from and is it fresh or not. So what is your perspective on this? Because chicken these days, it's so big, like I said in some of your videos earlier, and
Yeah.
you just don't know how good it is, how fresh it is. And even and when it comes to red meat, we really don't, a lot of us have not been consuming it, so identifying the right source of it can become difficult. So what is your point of view on a diet where we would consume dairy, we would consume seafood and eggs. How is that going to go like?
Any animal based food is better than no animal based food. That is rule number one. So, which is where I have a not a problem, but veganism, that's where it doesn't make sense to me, because it even removes dairy out of the equation. Okay, so let's keep that aside. But let's go to vegetarianism. What you are saved by in being a vegetarian, especially Indian vegetarians, we love dairy. Okay, so there's milk, there's cheese, there's paneer, there's curd. There are lots of varieties of this. So that is fine. Okay, now, no, I don't know who said that you have to consume red meat. Okay, while red meat is very nutritious, the amount it has been vilified is ridiculous. Okay, so if your go-to options are eggs and seafood, which is shrimp, prawns, fish, eggs, even, and then a little bit of dairy, even then you can complete your protein profile. Okay, eat any way you want, what is accessible. The best animal based foods you can eat are the ones that you like and the ones that you can afford. Let's not be a food snob and say I will eat only ribeyes, and you don't get that in India to begin with, right? And there is a lot of, like you said, not all communities in India are comfortable eating red meat. One, even traditionally, if it was part of their household, given the amount of media noise around it, given the fact that every doctor doesn't want you to eat red meat, people are scared. Having said that, okay, all the options that you mentioned are very good options. So I have enough people on my program who will say, Sangeeta, I can't do red meat. Can I do eggs, chicken, and fish? I say, perfect. Even then, your blood markers improve. Okay. So there is no rule that you should be eating red meat. Now, I want to say something because it was there in your notes and you brought it up right now. So, given the whole vegan agenda in the world, we see videos of antibiotics in chicken and, lead and mercury poisoning in fish. See, farming, mass factory farming of any kind is not going to be helpful. Okay. There is no meat eater on the planet who will agree or abide or be okay with the way animals are farmed. On the same note, if you think plants are not adulterated, or the agriculture produce that you eat is not mass farmed, is not hybridized, is not there is no usage of glyphosate and pesticides and all of that, you're kidding yourself. Okay, given the world population of 8 billion, and let's come back to India, if you have to feed so many people, we need to have regenerative farming. Okay, number one.
Mhm.
Number two, you need to, and this regenerative farming needs to happen not just with animals. Okay, it needs to happen across board, right? And a good question, therefore, to segue to is, suddenly why are markets flooded with soy based alternatives, right? So the reason is, soy is being farmed and produced on such a mass scale basis, and when anything that is produced on a mass scale basis, and I've spoken enough about soy, uh, why would it be healthy for you? So unfortunately, the food environment right now is, everything is adulterated. You have to be a food snob or very very well resourced to kind of source your grass fed and grass finished and organic and all of that. It's not feasible for a lot of people. Hell, even I don't eat that way. Okay, despite having all the resources and the knowledge, because it's just painful to keep sourcing that way. So will your animal produce that is not grass fed, not grass finished, be as highly nutritious as the ones that are? No. But like I have always said, any egg is better than no egg, any meat is better than no meat.
Lovely. Understood. That was really well explained, and that's also a lot of questions, simplifies things for a lot of people, because not everyone can completely adapt to this sort of
No, it's
eating.
not
And
possible. Yeah.
exactly. So taking these small steps would definitely help. And for me personally, also, I feel more confident about the way I'm making changes in my nutrition now. So thank you for explaining that. And coming to red meat, there are some people who are willing to consume it. But do you think that, when we live in hotter environments and if someone does not lead a very active lifestyle, is it good for us to consume it is, are we going to be able to digest it that well, and how should we go about consuming it?
So, firstly, I want to address this, animal-based foods causing heat and all of that. I'm very well aware where this concept comes from, and I'll come to that. Firstly, let's understand, no matter which part of the globe you come from, okay, like I said, you are a Homo sapien sapien, your stomach acid, your DNA, okay, all of these are very, very narrowly controlled, okay. Whether you are an Icelandic person, whether you're an Indian, whether you're a Southeast Asian, it doesn't matter, okay. Your biology and what you need to eat has been predefined by the species that you are. Okay, so just because you're living in Africa, it doesn't mean you can't eat meat. Okay, otherwise, all Africans would be probably, I don't know, eating fruit only. Okay, so so meat is compatible to us as a species, no matter where we come from. Okay, meat, eggs, anything. Okay, now this concept, and depending upon where you are and what is your accessibility to food, other things get included, right? Like, for example, if you're in tropical climates, you have more access to tropical fruits, so fruits will become a part of your diet. Okay, if you are in the Nordic countries, you have more access to milk, therefore cheese becomes a major part of your diet, right? But there is no country or no ethnicity in this world who can claim that animal based food is not compatible to me because suddenly my stomach acid is different, or the composition, the pH value of my stomach acid is different. So that is a very, very a silly argument. But I'll tell you where this notion comes from. This notion, as much as I respect ancient wisdom like Ayurveda, etc., this notion that eating eggs causes heat, eating meat causes heat, your temperament and your personality will change by eating meat, all these are rubbish concepts. Okay, these are concepts that have been twisted and turned, and this comes from the whole concept of cold foods and hot foods and all of that, right? So there is absolutely zero validation to this. Again, I said, want to say this, I have respect for wisdom of Ayurveda. It works in certain conditions, it does not work in certain conditions. But from a scientific standpoint, none of this have validity. Okay. Having said that, if you've been eating in a certain way, okay, when you transition your way of eating, there could be changes in your gut microbiome that could be resulting in some sort of an effect on for a limited period of time. And I'll give you an example. When most people go from the standard Indian diet, which tends to be a high carbohydrate diet, and when they move into a low carbohydrate diet, which is optimized for protein and fat, and the carbohydrates are low, surely because of the volume of, and I have a word for this, I call it garbage, not garbage, but yeah, sounding like garbage, but garbage. Okay, surely because of the volume of garbage that is lowered, people do experience a change in their bowel movement. Now, does this mean that the low carb diet is not compatible for you? No. Your input is changing, so your output will change. Give it some time. Usually, in 2 to 3 weeks, these kind of changes will settle. Right? So, when people say, when I eat the yolk, it gives me acne, you want to examine. I always tell people, what are you eating the egg with? And normally it will be some 3 slices of toast. Okay, have you tried eliminating the toast before blaming the egg? Okay, or they will tell me, oh my god, non-vegetarian food, chicken mutton gives me acidity. How did you eat the chicken mutton? Oh, it was biryani. So, have you examined the rice, the oil, the hazar spices? If you were to eat a grilled meat, is it happening to you? No, it will not happen to you. Okay. So, the misconception and the convenience at which, or the ignorance with which we kind of blame these foods, with this half confused Ayurveda notion that this food causes heat and this food causes cold, and that doesn't happen. And to a lot of people, surprise when people say, oh, chas or dahi is cooling. Actually, as per Ayurveda, they are heat producing foods.
True.
Okay. So, so nobody, like, Ayurveda runs, it's called a parallel science, and it's called, some people call it pseudoscience. If it's working for you, eating that way, do that way. But these half baked misconceptions is best not to have. If you're transitioning to a certain way of eating, do it slowly. If you are on a high carb diet today and tomorrow you start a fast, your headache will kill you. That doesn't mean fasting is bad for you. If you start from a high carb diet and you go into a sudden carnivore, you will have extreme diarrhea. That doesn't mean the carnivore diet is bad. There is a process of transitioning into every way of eating given how you've eaten before.
Absolutely, and that makes a lot of sense because I've heard you talk about how what we eat doesn't always give us immediate effects, or we cannot always judge on how our body is reacting to it very on like say in 1 week or 2 weeks and give that up, because a lot of time we see those results decades later, negative and positive both. But keeping that in mind, how can one, what are the signs or symptoms we should look for that our body is adapting well to this particular transition? And what are the things that we can do that help us, ease into this transition?
So, I want to address this differently. Firstly, we need to understand. So, I say eat as close to nature as possible. Okay, no matter what food it is, if it is made in if it goes through multiple levels of processing. And again, I'm not saying processing is bad. Okay, I'm not saying some, even cooking is processing, right? It is one level of processing, right? So if anything is coming out of a factory, no matter what the research currently is around it, be very careful before eating it, because most there are certain foods that come in certain combinations in nature. Okay, for example, protein and fat always come in that combination in nature. You will rarely find fat on its own in nature, you will rarely find protein on its own in nature, right? So any food that is as close to nature, you will find it in that combination, and that is the combination you're supposed to eat. A whole egg is an example of that, milk is an example of that, paneer is an example of that, meat is an example of that, right? Protein and fat coming in nature. Nowhere you see fat and sugar coming in nature together. That's ice cream. Okay, so know what foods come in what combination in nature and eat in that combination largely. Okay, so how to translate it to the current way of living, where a lot of what we eat is actually grain or carbohydrate, is change your plate proportion. The largest part of your plate should be foods that the way they are found in nature, right? So whether you are eating dairy or whether you're eating animal based, whether you're eating meat, let the largest part of the plate be that. Then plants are found as is in nature, eat the plant on its own. Then please fill your plate with carbohydrates, because ultimately carbohydrate is not an essential macronutrient at all, right? Avoid things that you have not heard of in the last 150 years. Soy is one of them, especially the way soy is marketed and found today, in the form of plant based meat, in the form of soya chunk, in the form of, if you want to eat soy, do it the way it is traditionally eaten in the Southeast Asian communities, where it is fermented, soaked, it's done all of that, and it is non-GM. Okay, having said that, the I don't even diss soy for its estrogenous effect on men. That's not the point. Okay, soy has lectin, a protein. Soy protein is a legit allergen to many. People may not know about it. Most whey products that are adulterated with soy, people they tend to develop stomach trouble. It is a thyroid function disruptor. It works as an anti-nutrient in many cases, where it inhibits the absorption of other micronutrients. Okay, now if you're a hardcore vegetarian, not even eating eggs, I hate to say this, do not eat soy, but once in a while go consume it. But know your sources and why you're consuming. Okay. All these things that are coming in the form of tempeh in a packet, the soya chunk, that is not the form of soy you want. So, eating foods as close to nature, something that has been available historically, even if now a little modified, is okay, versus you eating things like, who used to eat oats? Did your great grandmother know oats? Why are we eating oats? Right? So it's as simple as that. Okay. And when you want to decide your plate proportion, eat what you're supposed to eat in the quantity that you're supposed to eat. Your plate is not supposed to be 55% carbohydrate. Simple.
True. Understood. That was really well explained because uh, that is true. Most of our Indian meals, we grow up, having this large carb quantity in our meals, and it's difficult to make this switch. But like you rightly said, making these small changes rather than just completely switching into it the next day and then dropping it again because it's not working for your body, that really works. Now, coming to what you said, eat what is close to nature. Now, a lot of people would think about it like in terms of vegetables and fruits because that is the first thing that comes in our mind when we think about that. Give us a list basically that that we can switch to when we are going through this transition.
See, there are a couple of ways to look at this, and I'll come to that. Okay. When you are on predominantly animal based nutrition, okay, vegetables and fruits render themselves from a nutrient standpoint, they render themselves almost next to nil. Okay. There is nothing the animal based kingdom will not give you, not a single thing that you get only from plants and fruits, from vegetables and fruits. This is the truth. Okay. But there are a ton of nutrients, there are many nutrients that animal based foods will give you, which plant and fruits will not give you, or vegetables and fruits will not give you. B12 is one big vitamin that you will not get from plants and, I mean, vegetables and fruits. Okay. So I am not crazy about vegetables and fruits. I don't eat fruit at all, barring some strawberry and blueberry and blackberry here and there, or an orange. I hardly eat vegetables too. I maybe eat once in a while cauliflower, cabbage, depending upon where I am. Okay, like somebody will offer me a vegetable, I'll eat it, but it's not an active part of my diet at all, right? I will eat a potato once in a while, depending upon the days I strength train. Now, the reason I say eating a rainbow is stupid and eating this balanced diet is stupid because these are the two things that have been propagated in the mainstream media so much they don't mean anything. What do you mean eat a rainbow? Eat different colors of food. Why? It just sounds nice, na? And it makes the plate pretty. When you eat a rainbow, where is your B12 coming from? When you eat a rainbow, where is creatine coming from? When you eat rainbow, where are your omega 3s coming from? Okay, you're eating all the rainbow and the balanced diet as a vegetarian or a vegan, and you're supplementing with omega 3, you're supplementing with B12, you're supplementing with vitamin D, you're supplementing with taurine, creatine, whey protein. Then why eat a rainbow? You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely, that totally makes sense.
Yeah. So what is that rainbow giving you? Now, do I have a problem with people who want to eat plants? No, absolutely not. Go and eat the plants. I am not going to be one of those people who also does the carnivore diet who says that plants are trying to kill you. No, plants are not trying to kill you, but plants are discouraging you from eating them, which is why all plants are better absorbed if they are cooked, fermented, soaked, and eaten in traditional ways, whether it's your lentils or your legumes or your plants, right? Or your vegetables. So do understand that plants do have anti-nutrients because that is their defense mechanism for you not to eat them. Okay. So you can consume them, but there are certain people in cases of chronic IBS conditions, in cases of arthritis, in cases of kidney stones and things like that. Mostly it is plants that is causing the havoc. Okay. And in countries like India where the food systems are not very stringent like other countries, if you eat raw plant you are going to invite trouble. So you better eat your plants cooked as far as you can tolerate them. They do have a place in your plate, but they do not supersede the benefit of protein and fat coming from animal based foods.
Absolutely, that was really
Now,
well explained.
coming to fruits specifically, it's a complete different topic than vegetables. Somehow, in our country, worldwide, more so in our country, we think fruits are free food. Okay, they are divine food. You can eat any number of fruits any given point in time. Fruit juices. Now it's the mango season. The number of people bringing armrests to my office is not funny. Okay, fruits are seasonal. They are supposed to be consumed in small quantities. Fruits are are not all fruits are supposed to be available at all times of the year. This is what mass farming in the plant world or in the agriculture world does. You have muskmelon, watermelon, apple, banana. Their sizes have changed. They're available all through the season. They're not supposed to be available. They're ridiculously sweet. So know that your fruits also. Now you will only look at chicken and say, oh, chickens have antibiotic, but you don't have a problem looking at fruits, right? Fruits have gone through a metamorphosis that they are nothing close to what it is natural. If you are in great metabolic health, please go and consume the fruit whole. Okay, but do not go and finish half a kg of grapes in one sitting. Okay, it will not help you. Also, what people don't know is the riper the fruit, the more the fructose, right? So, uh, a banana, if you're in great health and you're around your workouts, if it's medium ripe and you consume it, it is better. Yeah, you will not be able to consume a lot of it, but the more ripe it is, the more it is simply death by fructose. So, fruit has a place, seasonal, in small quantities, as a snack, but it is not your fruit fast and fruit detox and fruit juice. That's the worst.
Absolutely, that just literally gives you diarrhea. I mean, then you're just asking yourself, why did I do this? I mean, I'm eating clean and I'm eating fresh and what is available naturally, but why is this happening to my body? That always happens. So
Unfortunately, people's definition of a detox is drinking various colors of liquids and constantly being in the toilet. That's not a detox, that's a gut irritation.
true that. And like meat always gets the hit for that.
Correct,
We really ignore this part of the whole veggies and fruits, and it's always the meat that gets that blame. So that is very true.
correct, correct.
And coming to meats, do you believe in changing the meat consumption according to the season?
Not really. Red meat is, see, the only things that you have to be seasonal and worried about is and it's there in our traditional societies, right? When you're consuming seafood, if you're in the coast, the Maharashtrians will tell you in the breeding season don't consume fish. They go through that. So I think you have to be. So in terms of red meat, there is no seasonality. Okay. In terms of poultry, there is no seasonality. In terms of eggs, there is no seasonality, right? But with seafood, depending upon where you are, there is seasonality of breeding, etc., right? So yes, I am somebody who believes that if you're not eating red meat, please rotate your protein sources. Okay, don't just do chicken, and don't just rotate your protein sources well, so that you get a right mix of it. But if you're eating red meat, you don't even need to do that. That's the advantage of red meat.
Absolutely. Understood. And when you talk about a low carb and protein rich diet, what are the carb sources that you usually suggest your clients, and what you also personally consume if it's a low carb diet?
Okay. So, how low carb one should be, and what are your sources of carbohydrates? For me, in my practice, depends upon two parameters. The first parameter is your blood work. Okay, where is your fasting blood sugar? Where is your fasting insulin? Where are your lipid profile? Your triglycerides? What is your liver markers like? Okay, poor glycemic control or poor glucose control will show up in these metabolic markers, right? So if it is poor and you are anywhere on the spectrum of metabolic syndrome, which is one of those, a triglyceride problem, PCOS, all of those, then depending upon what your way of eating is, again, we will divide this into vegetarians and meat eaters. If you're a meat eater, I can bring down your carbohydrate to under 50 grams, okay, of carbs in a day. And those will be what I call derived sources. Derived sources meaning vegetables and fruits. Okay, low carb, low sugar fruits and vegetables. Ultimately, vegetables are carbohydrates with fiber. Most people think vegetables are something else. They are just carbohydrates with fiber, right? If you're a vegetarian and you don't eat meat, then then probably 80 to 100 grams of carbs in a day, and your carb sources will have to be lentils and legumes, because that's your choice of eating. Now, if you're not metabolically unhealthy, all your markers are fine, but you just want to lose some weight, or you want to keep your carbohydrates in control, then usually I do allow for a consumption, and my go to, I'm very old school. I don't go and, again, you can eat all the millets you want, you can eat everything you want, but usually my go to is simple white rice and potatoes. Okay, simple carbs. Okay, so that is if you're healthy, there is nothing on with you, you're training, you're doing all of that. So the one carbohydrate which I will tell everybody to avoid now, okay, apart, and when I say carbohydrates, all your processed carbohydrates, definitely, like pastas and wheat breads, and we don't even need to get there. Wheat is something you should minimize in your diet. The instances of stomach gut dysbiosis and all of that that is caused by wheat today is maximum. Wheat spikes glucose more than rice does in many people. Okay, so I would not do wheat, I would not do oats. Okay, I, any other form of millet, depending upon who you are and what you can do, you can digest, it's fine. But my go-to is usually white rice and potatoes in tiny quantities. And of course, like I said, vegetables are carbohydrates with fiber.
Lovely. Understand. I think, like you said about wheat, there's a big gap that needs to be bridged in India because I keep thinking about the healthy options available in cafes or, most joints where if you want to order some food, the healthy option is wheat and the unhealthy option is maida. So even if you go to a normal like North Indian place, a lot of people order tandoori roti because it's healthy because they're making a
Yeah,
switch from maida to wheat.
yeah.
And I think there's
So Sakshi,
that
that is definitely an upgrade. Okay.
true.
but but it is not the upgrade that you think it is. See, going from eating like they say, though I'm not a proponent of it, going from drinking a regular Coke or a regular soda to diet soda, definitely an upgrade. But is that the healthiest thing? Absolutely not. Something that is half bad doesn't become good.
True,
And
true
that
that.
is wheat today.
Understood. Lovely. This was a lovely conversation and very insightful. I'm sure that our listeners are going back with a lot of takeaways. And I'll tell the audience that anybody who's planning to make a switch and accepting animal based nutrition, definitely go to Sangeeta ma'am's profiles. You'll find the links in the details below and her blog. Also, that's something that you can look at because this is the easiest way you can sort of ease yourself into this transition because like I honestly said, I have also seen so many biohackers, so many people talking about this kind of nutrition, and it's overwhelming to think about it. And I'm like, I can't do that, or so completely rejecting that. Instead of that, you can definitely go and find easier ways. And I absolutely loved the way that you've made it so flexible and accessible to people that they can accept it, and it's not a far out concept for them. So thank you for having that space
Thank
available for us.
you so much, Sakshi. I want to tell people again, I may sound a certain way with a certain tonality and personality on Twitter, but I'm somebody who makes nutrition very accessible, rightly, like you said. I'm not somebody who says carnivore is the way, or this is the way, or that is the way. Okay, while there is species appropriate nutrition, there is scope for nuance depending upon what your health markers are, what your eating preferences are, what your cultural background is. There is a lot of scope for variety and nuance there. As much as I propagate animal based nutrition because that is the need of the hour and that has been vilified with the amount of protein deficiency, iron deficiency, zinc deficiency, instances of PCOS, all of which are carbohydrate and sugar related. I work with vegetarians in a large manner because this group is close to my heart because I've been born and raised in that environment. I was in that environment for 30 years, 28 years. I didn't know what to do with it. If you have an open mind, talk to me. If you're open to including certain things, talk to me. Even if you're not, talk to me. Probably I'll find a way to help you.
Absolutely. And coming from a vegetarian family yourself, I'm sure that nobody would understand the dilemma of people right now more than you. So that is,
Absolutely.
we are lucky to have people like you, being this voice in India because people are really overwhelmed by the researches that they see, or anything that a nutritionist or a fitness influencer would talk about, and we very easily get selectively influenced by that. So thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that perspective with us. That's it for today's episode.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so much,
much.
Jen. Happy to see somebody as young as you interested in this topic. I hope people get to hear a lot on this. If there are any questions, I'm happy to do a Q&A follow up. Especially amongst youngsters of your age, there is a lot of confusion there. There is a lot of virtue signaling there. There is a lot of community thing there. So thank you for having me. Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much for gracing our podcast. It was a really insightful session. I'm sure our listeners are really keen on having this episode. So that's it for today's episode. I am Sakshi Pawar, and I'll be your host for the Settle or Be Better podcast. So stay tuned while we bring more inspiring stories your way. You know the drill. Subscribe to the Settle or Be Better podcast, like, share, and comment on our videos. And oh, hit the bell icon because you don't want to miss the mind boggling health discussions we're about to bring for you. Why settle when you can be better?